Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste and welcome to this 10 p.m. show on Wednesday. And when it is Wednesday 10 p.m., it is Shri Vibhuti Jha.
Namaste.
Namaste. Vibhuti
If it is Wednesday 10 p.m., it must be Vibhuti Jha. That's right. Thank you very much.
Right. People have got so used to this 10 p.m. Wednesday show now.
That's right.
And well, yes, and today we have a sequel actually. I think the first part of this narrative thing got done with Shri Vikram Sood and his book, The Ultimate Goal. And the new bold narrative that I am talking about, I think I take my cue from what the Prime Minister said in Rajya Sabha yesterday. And I think it is probably the first ever bold articulation of FDI, the foreign destructive ideology. Nobody said it till now. I don't think anybody ever said this foreign destructive ideology, which Chacha Nehru was so fond of. So that was one. And well, then there were, of course, I wouldn't say that there was a new narrative, but there were definitely nuances. Parajivi, Andolanjivi, those were all nuances. But then also the COVID diplomacy is another big narrative that is getting built without using any words, plainly through acts. And also, of course, we have to discuss what transpired between Joe Biden, the scientist, and Narendra Modi, the artist. I think these are the items on the agenda today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I must compliment you for bringing the narrative matter in the discussion. And I think that the way Mr. Sood talked about, I saw the program, I heard him. My life has become easier. I don't have anything to say.
Sure. No, but we are talking about the narratives that are getting built.
Right.
He's talking about the ways of building the narrative.
Believe it or not, building a narrative is something which is very dear to me, because I think I have mentioned this to you before and I have shared with your audience that when I came to the US in 91, my mandate was to market India in this country. And that was the time when I realized that we had no story to tell. We had no narrative. Exactly. And I had to create the narrative of India, which nobody was willing to believe until they began to see the arguments and see the positioning that I did. So I'm very proud of that. I have been not yelling, but I have been talking about that India needs to build its own narrative. And if you don't build your narrative, somebody else defines you. And you end up being whatever they say. And you keep wondering.
That's exactly the problem with India. We got defined by the West.
We are defined by the West.
Mr. Sood was saying. We got defined by the West and we never pushed back.
Never pushed back. So, you know, last time I had shown you a chart in which we had prepared what I call the new game of business. If you see it here, is the new game of business. In that, if you look at in more ways than one, the first line is we have created several sections in this side here. Several sections here in the nature of what the work is all about. So look at it with the scenario today, that how the agriculture bill, the farm bill, has been made to create agriculture into an efficient and efficiency-driven business. To free up the farmer from the, to use the very nice word, chungle of the middlemen. So this is the important part to understand. And Prime Minister's speech in the Rajya Sabha and today in the Lok Sabha, what Mr. Sood said, they were echoing my thoughts so strongly that I feel very nice about it, that I was not just barking in the wilderness. But that's the important part, because today we have to understand is the narrative? What is India's narrative? Think about it from that point of view, which is remarkably important. What I noticed was that we need to create a national identity of India. Today, Indians all over the world and Indians themselves first identify themselves as Punjabis, Maharashtrians, Gujaratis, Tamilians, and then comes India. And believe me when I say this to you, it's only in the strange category of NRI, non-resident Indian, the first time every Indian overseas is categorized as one identity of non-resident Indian. There is no non-resident Bihari, there is no non-resident Rajasthani, there is no non-resident Punjabi. These are all non-resident Indians. So that identity building is very important, which is what Prime Minister is doing remarkably well. There were a couple of things which came about the national identity. I think, in my opinion, I have always said that former Prime Minister Nehru destroyed the national identity of India by succumbing to a very divisive force of creating the state based on languages. So while nobody denies the importance of language, because even my language, Maithili, is not a state language of Bihar, official state language of Bihar. It's one of the several languages, but I am still very fond of my language. I'm very proud that I'm able to speak well, never forgot about it. But the point is, that was a divisive thing. It aggravated the divide of India in many identities. So we need to create a national identity of our own, that we are Indians first, anything else later. And I want to share with you something very important that happened in my life, that I shared a platform in Delhi several years ago with General Malik, who was the commander of the Kargil War. And he was talking about military leadership, and I was talking about corporate and business leadership. And he said something remarkably which touched my heart. He said, in the military, in the armed forces, it is country first, battalion next, and me last. In the civil life, it is me, mine, and myself. That's the difference in the way the narrative is built. Military has no state, but there may be names of Bihar regiment, Madras regiment, and Sikh regiment, and whatever regiment, but the identity is owned. There are people from all over the state in particular regiment and all that. So we need to create a national identity of our own. What unites us? And we have to create that storyline. What unites us beyond cricket, and what beyond a Pakistan attack on India? What is the uniting factor of India? Is it Sanatan Dharma? Is it our eternal principle? Or is it something which Prime Minister Modi very proudly said in Rajya Sabha, that we are talked about as a largest democracy and United States the most powerful democracy. But people forget that we are the actual mother of democracy. Our way of life offers that kind of freedom to pray or not to pray, no mandates, no restrictions. You are free to pray or not to pray and be who you want to be. That is how our way of life, Sanatan Dharma, has resulted in anybody not agreeing to that, creating his own thing. Arya Samaj, Brahma Kumari, call it whatever you want. Whether it was Sikhism, anything, they were all driven by a particular ambition and desire. That's the important part, and that's the narrative we need to tell the world in the modern 21st century, where coronavirus has taught us that the virus did not recognize color, caste, creed, race, country, age, anything. That's the important part, and we need to carry that message forward. So I believe that creating the identity of India, of Indians, of Bharatvasis is remarkably important. There was one thing which I picked up from Mr. Sood's conversation, and I have said this here, that I have tremendous faith in the youth of the country. And the youth of India is today empowered through the use of these tools. Your whole universe opens here, and it shuts down when you close it up. So your universe is open here. Create connectivity on common causes. What is the cause that unites us together? Europe is multiple countries called European Union. They all became union only to oppose American economic might and the political might. There was no other reason. They are remarkably proud people of their own language, of their own territory. Europe has been through German unification, Italian unification, then breakup, and then unification again. We are already united. Think about it. There is a strength in unity, and unity is a strength, has to be more than the story in Panchatantra and a punchline of Panchatantra. We have to make it real and happening. So one other aspect, which it was very important, that was called about narrative. We are talking about the subject matter. In the leadership column here, if you see this here, leadership column here, right here, leadership. The leadership column here, we have talked about that before 1980, it was a legacy of Second World War. It was command and visionary. You give a command, leader ne kaha, aapne suna, aapko dusre baat karne ki zarurat nahi thi. Leader ki baat suno. Leadership became a value, vision, and empowerment industry between 80 and 2000. Today, the leadership is all about creating mood, building alliances, creating conditions of satisfaction for coordination, mobilization, and the narrative building. Please bear in mind, narrative building. And we have been saying this for several years. This was not done yesterday. It was done several years ago. If you want, Sanjay ji, I will send it this as an email. You can post it on Jaipur Dialogues. I want everyone to benefit from what we define the new game of business. And that's where we have to become aware of things. Our narrative.
If you have an electronic version, do.
Yes, I will send it to you.
In fact, if you can send it now, we can paste it here.
Abhi to nahi ho payega, because I don't have more than one computer to make that part of it. So I will do that later. And then we can have a conversation on this. We have done programs on this for people. Yeah.
Okay, right. Sure. In fact, what I was saying, before we discuss the specifics of what the bold new narrative as propounded or proposed by the Prime Minister, I think in a very general sort of way, I would say that I'll again take it from the description that I posted on Mr. Sood's video. Let's say he said that facts are not always what they appear to be, but are often what they are perceived to be.
That's right.
Thus, the truth is not supreme in affairs of state and is often hidden within a bundle of lies, half-truths, and innuendo. Instead, perceptions built on narratives become the accepted truth. Now, this is exactly that has happened to us, but our task is easier. Why? Because we actually don't need to do all this. We just need to let out the truth about ourselves. And for that, of course, we have to come out of that, what is called the self-imposed miasma of lies, half-truths, and innuendo which surround us completely. All that we need to do is to, just to get the veil, tear the veil out. ये जो बुर्का पहन रखा है हमने सेक्युलरिज्म का, जो बुर्का पहन रखा है सोशलिज्म का, इस बुर्के को हम उतार फेंके तो सच्चाई सामने आ जाए, और इस सच्चाई को ही हमें कहना है. We don't need to state anything different. We don't have to use these sharp tactics which the foreign powers have used through their imperialistic power, through their intelligence agencies, and through their entertainment industry, what they have done. Our entertainment industry, in fact, it works at cross purposes. It only belittles our narrative. It tells everybody that we have no narrative. So that also we have to take care of. This is my general observation.
You are absolutely right. Truth telling and letting people know what is the most important part, and we cannot fight shy of it. And this has been my learning in as many years that I have been abroad and working in the institutions that I served. What I learned from the West, and that's something which I said very clearly, that, politician lives in his own world of Ardha Satya, right? He lives in his own world of Ardha Satya. The question is, which Ardha Satya do you believe in? And that is where the storytelling becomes important. And if you are not doing that part, the truth about ourselves, that we are an authentic democratic way of life, and if you don't tell the West about it, through institutions, not by individuals alone, but through an institutional effort, then the effort falls flat. Then we end up only reacting. We are not responding. And this is what you saw in Prime Minister's speech when people have talked about why didn't he do anything, like you were angry about the 26th January that he did nothing about it. But when you understood the whole thing, you accepted that he knew more than what we were thinking, perhaps, right? So that's the point which I'm trying to say here, is that he was responding to a scenario. He was not reacting, shooting from the hip. So that's the important part for all of us to understand. Everybody, getting excited is easy, but to focus that energy into a channel towards a desired outcome is important. So response is a studied way to answer or address a problem. Reaction is, वो हम बिहार में कहते हैं ना प्यार से, मारो साले को. That's a reaction. किसी की बात हुई, मारो साले को. So that is a reaction. But response is a cold, calculated, measured, reaction or response to a oncoming scenario. This is where we have to become very responsive. We need to create institutions within ourselves, which is very important. Institution building is something which I learned the West has done remarkably well. So think about it from this point of view. Everybody in the film industry wants to win an Oscar. Everybody in the music industry wants to win an Emmy. Every journalist wants to win a Pulitzer. Everything is World Cup, World Olympics. These are all institutions created by these guys. Even the freedom of religion, the concept makes no sense to Indians because we always had freedom of religion, but it's part of our constitution because the West says so. So it's time for us to trim and truncate some of the Western ideologies that has permeated in our mind, and we have allowed ourselves to be enslaved by it. West se aaya to respectable hai, hamara hai to ghatiya hai. So this is the kind of a thing which we have been inundated in our mind because, remember one thing, the Premier Padmini car and Ambassador car rattled more than rattled more than the honking work there. They were lousy cars, but they were supposedly suited for Indian conditions. We never focused on quality. We paid more taxes, 40,000 rupees premium to buy a Premier car. Today I see them on the Bombay streets and I say, how the hell did I fit into that car? How did I ever sit in the car? But it was a prestige thing. So we in India had rendered quality as useless. Everything made in India became ghatiya. Imported is superior. Think about it from that point of view. So the concept of quality, the concept of productivity, performance did not matter in the Indian context. And as Prime Minister himself said, there's the music to my ears. Both you and Sood Sahab also laughed about it when he said the bureaucracy doesn't have the ability to run a company, right? PSU. So Nehru created the public sector undertaking for self-reliance, but he put wrong people to run the show. The result was the efficiency of capital, efficiency of productivity and performance just lost sight of. So these public sector undertakings became a monolithic giants, not doing what they were supposed to do. I was told, believe it or not, by somebody, I won't name the PSU, major PSU in India, amongst one of the Navaratans, the director of finance told me here in New York, कि 4 साल से कोई order नहीं मिला है. 4 साल से order नहीं मिला है. This was some years ago. And I said, how do you operate then? सरकारी कंपनी है, हम तो कुछ कर देते हैं इधर से उधर. That's the issue that we have to remember, that performance and productivity matters. And that's the narrative that we have to create around Make in India campaign, that the Made in India campaign which Prime Minister has done, which is what will create jobs, which is what will allow the youth to become part of the national narrative that it is made in India. Be proud of it. Be qualitative in your delivery of things. That's very important. So, I would say that bureaucracy will take time. They're all smart people. They're all good people. That's not in doubt. That's not in doubt at all. The question is whether you are relevant. You can have Sachin Tendulkar as Bharat Ratna. You can have Lata Mangeshkar as Bharat Ratna. And you also have Rajiv Gandhi as Bharat Ratna. But there is an absolute qualitative difference in each three of them. Lata Mangeshkar is not Sachin. Sachin is not Lata. And, that's the kind of thing which I'm trying to say, that we have to build that respect, that performance ability. And I'm so happy that these years Padma Shri awards are going to people or common people who would not have been heard before. So that's where it is called building a mood, that, Mr. Modi is inspiring people to do something worthwhile and be recognized for that part of it. So my message is that part of it. And, we have to take the message from emotion to logical. We are very emotional people, and we have to create a memorable experience of that. So think about it, all the Padma Shri winners of this year, how wonderful they must have felt that all the years of life's work culminated in being recognized, and that became an emotional and logical experience combined together. A sense of achievement and purpose came about. So, we are a 72-year young country with thousands and thousands of years of civilization to back us. Let the world know we may be 72 years independent in or as you always say, transfer of power, not independence, in 72 years ago, but we have a history and culture of over thousands and thousands of years ago. So how is our history taught? Where is the shared value amongst us? That's the kind of thing that Mr. Javadekar ought to consider from historical perspective. Teaching of history, creating the narrative is important. And there were many sacrifices made by many, many Indians, and that has to be recognized and remembered, and feel proud about that.
Yes. I think you mentioned about Sachin and Lataji. And of course, there are some people here who would like to have investigation against them,
right,
for favoring India and opposing Mia Khalifa and such other.
That's right. That's right.
So you have these characters as well.
Yeah.
So let's move to the specifics now.
Sure.
And let's see what. Though I think our historical narrative is yet to be cemented, but I think all the private efforts that are moving into that direction are praiseworthy. And I think a government can very safely follow suit, because there is already enough traction around that. And the second part that happened, and that was the foreign direct ideology part. And of course, you mentioned about the India being the mother of democracy. That's fine, but that only gets us those. As they say that fear gets you more respect than love. That's the reality of international relations, and that is the reality of narrative building too.
Right.
So hard power and soft power of narratives have to go together.
Right.
You can't be just soft narratives all the while, because soft narratives have got you nowhere. Soft narratives got you invaders, and soft narratives got you almost 700, 800 years of subjugation. So there has to be a judicious combination. So these two things, this combination of hard and soft, that disparaging the foreign destructive ideology and exalting India being the mother of democracy. How do you look at that?
Absolutely true. Because foreign direct interference, call it any which way you want. I know
No,
foreign.
I think this, when they say foreign destructive ideology,
Yeah,
he's talking about the global woke leftist ideology, which has
right,
become very popular in the US these days,
right.
and which
No,
I think I was actually very happy that the French president he pointed it out.
right.
Emmanuel Macron, he said that this woke leftism in the US is causing problem for everybody in the West as well.
As the saying goes, America's biggest cultural export today is woke culturalism, woke culture, cancel culture, and negationism. So it is indeed a worrisome factor, because the panchamakars, as you call in India, the left ideology in America is really gaining momentum, and just as and they have created pockets in India and vested interest in India, they promote a hate Modi syndrome. So that is absolutely terrible. And we have to remember one thing is that there is I have said this before, that India has become a happy hunting ground for all the leftist ideology people, and they look at Mr. Modi as the sole person who is an obstacle in their path, to do whatever they are trying to do. So whether it is a technology thing, whether it's a toolkit of Greta, we know that these toolkits, once you get to know, then it is important for us to figure out the hard power part of it, that our enemies are plotting and scheming and planning for days, months, years together, whereas we are not ready to respond. So we end up mostly reacting. And that's the message which I want to share with your audience, to all the audiences around, is that we have to kind of tighten the belt. And you are totally right. Soft power makes no sense. Non-alignment made no sense if you did not have the economic and political clout. And you can't have a political clout if you don't have economic strength, which is what China is commanding right now. These are the harsh realities that needs to be addressed. And to that end, I would put it this way, that we have to certainly begin creating new paradigm. And what I mean by saying it, this is a perfect time actually, when the world is seized of farmers' agitation, from Prime Minister Modi to declare uniform civil code for the entire country. That's important. That would be another bold initiative. That it will be another bold narrative, that people living in a country are under one law, under one rule of law and governance and everything else. That is not a human rights violation. It is all about creating that part of it. So we have to deal with the psychological operations and political manipulations and physical threats that we receive from time to time. India has to really button up. And as Mr. Sood said, government can't do everything. People have to do. And the leadership has to come from people like you and I and many others who are involved in it. So it is wonderful to see the plethora of digital media exposing one thing or the other that was unwarranted and impossible to have ever thought about doing it. So, we have to create. So let's take this example. For example, I haven't seen any institution in India respond aggressively to the attacks made on India through Toolkit, Greta, and the Makar sitting in India. I haven't seen Hindu American Foundation in America talk about it. I haven't seen the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America talk about it. I haven't seen RSS and Hindu Mahasabha issue statements that these kind of things we will not allow to happen. So institutionally, we always hope that government will do this. But government cannot do everything. People have to organize at various levels. For example, in America, Mr. Sood mentioned that. That's why I said he made my life very easy today. I don't have to say it. Mr. Sood has already confirmed it through his deep analysis and deep knowledge. The fact that Indians, second generation and later Indians in America and the West, are absolutely Hindus in name only. They are brainwashed into their classrooms of left ideology. And believe it or not, I had somebody I know very well. She mentioned to me that her daughter was mentioning that the entire Indian youth believes that Sikh farmers are being killed and they have been uprooted because of the memes that go on Facebook and other social media campaign. So I would urge the Indian youth who are coming to study here or they are in India to take up issues like this. Go on Facebook, respond that what they are doing and what they are saying is false. Contest the false narrative aggressively. Don't feel shy about it. You don't have to be apologetic about it. Choose your language well. Doesn't mean that you have to become rude, crude, or whatever, but contest it, confront it, and deal with it and address it. That's important. I have been sending our programs and Jaipur dialogues to parents. The first generation parents they worked hard to make their living. That is true. They worked hard professionally. We were all kind of driven by achieving excellence, and we have established a reputation, in the country and the world over. There is a reputation of Indians in this part of the world that, hey, you guys are good guys. I was told in 91 by some Americans, are you a Pakistani? I said, no, we are the good guys. So what was I trying to say? So I said this, we are the good guys. You don't even know us. And then I'm reminded of that. If we don't tell them who we are, they are sitting in the wrong frame of reference. We have to do these kind of things. For example, when there was a beef matter came about in India 2 years or 3 years ago, I was told by a person, why do you guys worship cow? And he threatened me that I'm asking you a very difficult question. I said, no, it's not a tough question. If you understand the concept of cash cow, then you will understand why we are not beef eaters. And I explained it to him. I don't know if we have time to say that, but that was a pretty remarkable thing. That CEO still calls me, Vibhuti, please tell these guys why you Hindus don't eat beef. I gave him 4 reasons why we don't.
Okay, why don't you spell it out for these?
I will tell you. I'll tell you. I decided when he asked me this question, so he said, why don't you guys worship cow? So it was a very strong word. Why do you worship cows? I said, let me explain to him in the manner that he understands, not in the manner of our virtue or whatever it is. So I said, you Christians use the word called, and he's a hardcore Baptist guy in the Bible Belt of America. So I said, you guys talk about the word gratitude, be grateful, have a gratitude for things around you. We express our gratitude to God for giving us this beautiful animal whose milk is the most potable and suitable milk for human infant, particularly mothers who did not lactate enough. And this cow fed the infants in the entire village. So she became a surrogate mother, absolutely a surrogate mother. Would you kill your mother to enjoy her steak just because it is tasty, or you would let the cow fulfill her responsibility? She's a mother for us. Oh, didn't know that. That was his instant reaction. Then I said, when she gives milk, when she is giving milk, she's either delivered a male or a female. The female will become a cow again, but the male goes into the farm and he does the farm work. Food grain comes home, we consume, we sell. Thus, the cow becomes an assumed role of an economic unit. I didn't use the word Lakshmi. I said it becomes an economic unit of exchange of money, trade, and commerce. So it becomes an element of, trade and commerce. So it's an economic unit. And third, then he said, oh my God. I said, no, here's the third one. Third one, I said, the cow dung. I said, I have lived in Indian villages. My mother used to make food on the cow dung fuel. So I know that story. I said, cow dung doesn't have a foul odor to it. It's a very interesting thing. If you ever go and see, cow dung doesn't have a foul odor to it. And the cow dung is a biodegradable, eco-friendly item, which is used for a variety of purposes, including burning into the home so that insects and flies don't come in. And finally, even in her death, Her hide is used for a variety of purposes. And that's where you goddamn Westerners came up with the concept of cash cow for a business. It is actually an Indian concept that you had imported in your business to call a business a cash cow that fetches you cash from inception to its closure. From that time onwards, Sanjay ji, I'm telling you,
this cash cow thing is a pretty good one.
So what I want to say is that this is the kind of things we have to do.
This is called narrative building. This is how these small narratives are built into big ones, actually.
Absolutely. Even today he calls me. It's 2-year-old incident. Even today he calls me. Tell my friends why you Hindus don't eat beef, because in your context.
Yeah, actually, this you said gratitude, and we know. I don't know whether the next generation knows. But we know that, of course, the first level that you have all the concepts of what is called the Brahma and Nimit and Devata and all that. But at the second level, at the level of the society, you have this beautiful concept of called the Panch Rina, or the 5 debts that a human being owes to other people.
Correct.
To the parents, Pitra Rina, Rishi Rina, to the gurus, to Deva Rina, to your all the people who do good to you, Bhuta Rina, to all beings.
Correct.
And Ritu Rina, that is to nature.
Right.
So these are the 5 debts that we owe to all our surroundings, and that concept, I think, is unique to us. That is why I call this culture as the most beautiful culture, and it has become degraded because we have forgotten about it.
We have forgotten about it. Yeah,
forgotten about it. Anybody who's having this kind of a beautiful concept of 5 debts to be discharged,
correct,
before you attain liberation, cannot but be a great guy.
Cannot but be. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say to you, that, it's only in 91 that I came, after coming here, I became a better Hindu, better Indian, and a better human being, is because I realized there was so much virtue in our way of life, and we had degraded it ourselves by trying to be like West. And that's where the flaw in our character, in our culture came about. And that was something Mr. Sood was also referring to. And I've said this here before, and so I'm very happy to repeat that part, because repetition is key in understanding some of the features. Because 140,000, 1941 census, 140 or 145,000, 145,000 British ruled India. 1941 census. You don't have to go too far. Just look it up. 145,000 British people, plus women and children. They ruled us using our resources, our people, dividing our land the way they thought it was unki property thi, and we allowed them to do it. When we talk about कि हजारों साल से हम रूल होते रहे हैं, मेरा ये सवाल उठता है कि हमें आज ये सबको ये सोचना है कि हमने होने कैसे दिया? Why did we let it happen? And that's the thing. If we are not learning from history, history will repeat itself, because this is an important, very, very important lesson of life. Mr. Sood is a gentleman, and I will definitely look up his book for sure. But his statements were very strong, very valid, and I think he was brutally frank, despite being soft. So this is how you use the soft and the strong power to.
One of the best statements that I liked, that that the one he said, and I think I tweeted it today.
Okay.
Is that the bigoted man is very dangerous.
Yes.
But the worst form is the self-acclaimed liberal who is intolerant of everything except his own opinion.
That's right. That's right. Very true. Yeah. So that's what is important for us to do. I would say that, Prime Minister
and
Modi.
The next one, which I again tweeted, which is very important, when you say that 145,000 men ruled us. So they did not rule us. This is the statement that he made in this book, which I tweeted today. It says that the power does not come necessarily out of the barrel of a gun. The power comes from those who build narratives. The British
Yes.
built narratives. They built their own narratives, and also they built our narrative,
Yes.
which we are
Yes.
still following even today.
That's right. That's right.
The first thing that any wise prime minister would have done is to get hold of our narrative. But then we inherited Chacha Nehru. Again, he was a choice of the British.
Right.
He was a chosen prime minister of the British to continue the British rule, and he continued not just the British rule but the British narrative as well. And we are suffering even today.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Like I'm totally, for example, I contested Irfan Habib and Ramila Thapar's books. I refused to read them. I said, no, I'm not going. I don't subscribe to that point of view. But this is me alone during my time. But, I'm not like this because I'm in America. This is how I was back home too. So because it is important for us to remember, that's why I say performance is the key. Performance-based culture is key for India's forward movement. And establishing that we are the country that will deliver a Make in India campaign with skill, that is the key part of it. The rule, when I said that 145,000 rule through the narrative and abusing us, and we took that abuse from them. So why did we let it happen? We have to take the next step to remember that just as Prime Minister Modi has invested his tan, man, dhan, or whatever dhan he has into India's future, we have to look beyond that. What can we do? And today, that I will definitely say, JFK's famous statement, don't ask what the country is doing for you, but what you are doing for the country, is remarkably relevant in the Indian context, which is what I believe in the youth of India. And that's what Mr. Sood also was telling, that why do you rely upon the government? You do something, form your group, contest what is going on is wrong. Protest is not wrong. It is contesting the evil is what is important. If you just lie back and let it go, it's the good people who don't act and they let the system crash. That's the whole.
Oh, yes. It is. I think it is a truism that for evil to succeed, all it takes is for good men to remain silent.
Correct.
That's all that it takes.
Correct. Absolutely.
And this is how the narratives are built. In fact, the Chinese narrative about China being a very, very, what is called progressive power was not built by China. It was built by the West.
Right.
For its own profit motive. And look where it has landed them. So you can also build sometimes positive narratives. You can also build narratives about others that can come back to haunt you. So that's another extreme example.
That's right. No, for example, today, if you look at the attack of the liberal and the West about India, is only one thing, is a word called dystopia, in which you create an imagined state that if Modi is remaining, then India will become something that it was never thought of. You create a state or a society in which there is great suffering or injustice, typically one that is totalitarian and post-apocalyptic. So they are building the narrative against Hindus as if we Hindus are evil people. In reality, we are the nicest people on the planet Earth because we don't go on war with anybody else except for one or two incidences that we have spread out, but we are generally peace-loving people. हम तो शांति के लिए भी सब कुछ देने को तैयार हो जाते हैं साहब. For once, there was a very nice thing which Mr. Sood said, and I said he made my life very easy today. You have to draw a line. He said that in today's program, that you have to draw a line. That's what I have been saying. You have to draw a Lakshman Rekha, which I borrow from Ramayana, to say that you have to draw a Lakshman Rekha this far and no further. If you do not draw your Lakshman Rekha, then people will violate your line and they will be doing it with utter contempt. That's what is important to do that. Like for example, we talked about it. We have talked in the past and I'm repeating that today. Nothing new about it, but sometimes things need to be repeated so that it makes home in your mind. That Lakshman Rekha, the line you draw, The second part is that we have to create our own institutions so that a YouTube or a Twitter or somebody doesn't shut us down. And we have to use our knowledge power, brain power, and everything that is there to take advantage of the technology leap. If we do not take advantage of the technology leap today, we will be left behind. And then nobody else will be there to blame. That's important. So take responsibility and create institutions and organizations, that contest the false narrative every day. That's the important part. Devote 15 minutes of the time. That's it. That's what is required. Is to say no. I will not take this lying down anymore. And I'm aggressive about it.
Oh yes, and look at the things that people who are making these, trying to make these narratives.
Yeah.
One of them, the other Pappu in your part of the world, Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Who was preaching India the other day on the farmers' crisis, and today he calls up Prime Minister Modi. His Prime Minister just tweeted that he called him up and requested for vaccines.
Right.
So
actually, it was on Twitter yesterday also that Trudeau make a call to Prime Minister Modi to ask for some vaccines.
So he did that today. I'm saying it's just this, I can see the tweet there in front of my the screen, on my screen, that we have to. This is Modi's tweet. Was happy to receive a call from my friend Justin Trudeau. Assured him that India would do its best to facilitate supplies of COVID vaccines sought by Canada.
Right.
So they're sought by Canada.
Right.
And of course, continue collaborating on other important issues. What is left unsaid is Jagmeet Singh. He's the guy who needs to be hung by the collar.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure that Prime Minister Modi understands that he cannot do without Jagmeet Singh.
Right.
So he can certainly tell Jagmeet Singh, "Okay, look, thus far, and no further."
That's right.
Call it.
Absolutely.
I think the Indian narrative is doing well. Indian narrative is progressing well, but I think, as you rightly said, that it's not the government alone. In fact, the narrative that is pushed by the government is typically gets discredited. It is for us to build institutions. It is for us to push that narrative,
Correct.
And it is for us to call out these khalifas of different kind, new khalifas.
And expose it.
Yesterday, I called it a new Khilafat movement, actually.
It's very important.
Rihanna, somebody was asking Rihanna today on Twitter again. She's from Barbados.
Yeah.
And Barbados was delivered 500,000 doses of vaccine, Indian vaccine.
Correct.
So I think a lot of people were asking her, tagging her. Say thanks at least.
Right. That's right.
Your country's got 500,000 vaccines from India.
Correct.
I think our mistake is that we have been too soft, maybe because we probably did lack some kind of self-confidence. And I'll just narrate you an incident yesterday, because I give as good as I get. That's my policy. After you preached me on how to counter rule of radicals. Rules of radicals. You remember that episode that we had, how to counter the rules of radicals?
Right.
And so I was writing about the kheti of Mia Khalifa. Kheti comes naturally to her because she belongs to, she's kept a name which goes very well with kheti, that aurtein hamari kheti hai. And there are some of these stupid liberals, they latched on to me. I gave it back to them. And then that Lallan Top or whatever, they wrote an article. So I gave it back to them. And now I'm continuously trolling them. And that lady who had very entitled fashion demanded that it is my duty to take your bite. So I keep tagging her with every little tripe and every little trope that I post about Lallan Top, which I am doing quite often these days.
Very well. Very well.
These days meaning since yesterday.
No, I mean,
So the narrative building also, I think you have to be not just subtle about it, you have to be sometimes absolutely in the face.
right.
And that is something that governments cannot do. Governments cannot be in the face.
I mean, the Ministry of External Affairs can't be issuing a statement for every individual manipulated thing. So,
Absolutely not. It's not. They have to be diplomatic. They have to follow diplomatics. They have to follow the diplomatic niceties in the language.
right.
But we can build institution. For instance, suppose Jaipur Dialogues get established as an institution like one of these Washington think tanks. Then our word will count. And
I think, Sanjay ji, you are being modest. I think
we will shout down any of these attempts.
You are being modest. You are being heard. We are being heard. People are watching and people are listening. That is important. But what we have to do is that if you're interested, I will bring in a couple of think tanks I know to share thoughts and discussions and certain things that they do. I was involved with one of them. But two things that in my mind that we need to have a more conversation on is that very often people attack India as the rape capital, as if we are the ones who abuse women.
Oh, they haven't looked at the US figures, it seems.
Exactly. Nobody talks about that. And I actually shared with some of my friends in America. I do that. I say that the original example of gender equality was Shiv and Parvati. Ram and Sita, Krishna and Radha. Our history, our culture is full of these equalities. It's not for no reason that we have a word called Ardhangini, Ardhanarishwar. So we have a concept, but we have never talked about it. We don't talk about it. That's where our failing is that we have not.
And, I'll just add to it. Actually, it's not just good enough to talk about it. We have to shame the other person.
Shame the other person as well. It's like we are far more aware. So, I
am shaming them. They are reacting, so right. I shame them a little more.
That's right. So that is one. The second one, for example, whenever I am asked this question by any American, you guys have a serious problem of caste. I say, yes, we have a problem of caste. It's as good or as bad as your problem of racism. If you think there is no racism in America, we have no casteism problem. If you think you have a problem of racism,
I have thrown a challenge, 6 lakh rupees. It's not a small amount.
Right. So
anybody proves that Manusmriti says sanctions birth-based
right
Varna system, I'll give him 6 lakhs.
Right. And listen, this is what I'm trying to say, that we need to have another conversation or a write-up or a report. The caste system was brought in by the British. What we know is about the Varna system, and we still don't talk about it. That's what we do. We're not
very
putting it as an institution.
I've done 2 very good episodes with Professor Bharat Gupta.
Yes, I know.
On Manusmriti. And I think that is something that needs to be, spread around.
Right, it needs to be.
Along with the challenge. Here is the challenge. Mm-hmm. Because nobody's read that. Nobody knows Sanskrit. What will they read? Even Dr. Ambedkar did not know Sanskrit.
That's
he based his all his assessment on William Jones and others.
Right.
So I think we've come past the 50 minutes mark, and it's a good time to go into the question answer mode.
Sure.
I've got a flood of questions today.
Good.
That'll take a long time.
Definitely.
So I'll request you to be a bit brief while answering those questions.
As desired, sir. As desired.
I have to request again for everyone to please like the video, share it around in all your groups, including Koo, if you're on Koo. Some people are asking whether I'm on Koo. I'm very much on Koo. I don't know why I'm not visible there. My handle is just Sanjay Dixit, that's all. And of course, Patram Pushpam, Phalam Toyam also will do. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. All welcome. Let's go to the question answers.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Abhijit Tomar. Thank you. That's a handsome contribution. Thank you very much, Abhijit. Many RW people were opposing the harsh criticism of Greta, citing that she is just a child. Oh, she's a precocious child, must say, has some mental issues. I think this is just another form of identity politics by the left, and we should not fall for it. Greta is 18 and a Nobel winner, not a Nobel winner, but a nominee. She was a nominee, yes.
Abhijit, thank you very much for your comment. You are right. Identity politics is another export of America right now.
Absolutely. Identity politics, postmodernism and all that, cultural Marxism, critical theory, all that we talked about. That's Priyank right. Goyal. Thank you, Priyank ji. Thank you very much. Karan Batra, pranam to both, to fight the FDI. FDI was what the Prime Minister said. We learn from people like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Brad Polumbo, Benny Johnson on how they counter left.
Learning is never a bad idea. Let's learn from those who are doing it. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. But more important thing, Karanji, in this matter also would be is to build our own opposition. That's important. Learn from them and fit it with the local color, which is very important. We can't just copy paste. And while it is easy to do that, what Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, I'm aware of them. They do pretty strong work to fight these destructive ideologies, but left ideologies particularly. There is nothing we don't know. What we need to know is to put words into action. And that's important. So we need to, like somebody told me once, bring me the best practices from all over the world. I said, no, develop your Indian practice. We have enough. We don't need to know Bank of Mongolia or Bank of San Francisco best practices. They are not relevant to us. So let's kind of learn from them and create our own storyline. That's a good idea.
Right. Next. प्रियंक गोयल, क्या यह स्ट्रैटेजी सही है कि दुश्मन को माफ करते रहो और लास्ट में महाभारत हो? जल्दी सॉल्व करो तो कैजुअलिटी कम होगी.
You are saying the word of wisdom, thus far and no further. Once you draw the Lakshman Rekha based on your tolerance levels, everything will be fine. Because then the solution comes, because the irrational exuberance or stupidity of somebody, you don't have to shoot him for that. That's what I would put it. So give deliberation a chance. We are not warmongers, but when the dharma is threatened, we will be ready to fight. That's the message that you need to convey, and that comes from strength. That's where people need to recognize that element.
Right. Rahul Kulkarni, how about extending JD into a crowdfunding platform for nationalistic content creation, movies, stories, etc., as a first step of narrative creation? And we have that in mind, as a matter of fact. We do have that in mind. Just looking to beef up our support system a little bit. Maybe it may become possible.
To beef up, we need a cash cow now.
That's why I keep requesting for.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. But maybe in a small way we can start.
Right.
Somebody gives us a good content, we won't mind running it with credits. Of course, right now we can only give credits. We can't
That's right.
pay for it, for that matter.
That's right.
Navneet Tia, do you believe that non-left needs to organize and collaborate on a global scale to combat left propaganda? Do you believe the alignment is starting?
I 100% believe it is there. Applying the law of physics, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In the management work, we say that every trend has a counter trend. How much time it takes to build the momentum is key. And to that, I will add my phrase, which I thought about it, that India needs to become Modi plus and a PM plus, which is what Mr. Sood was also saying, that Prime Minister can do so much. Now the next step is for us to do. And that's what is important, that Prime Minister alone will be able to do a lot, but he will not be able to do everything that is possible. That's where you and I are required, that we become PM plus.
Right. Next. Poonam Abhi, Modi meme says, they are after you, I am just in the way. He's right. Target is enthused in Bharat. All these haters loved India. They had trashed, trampled, and in shambles.
And left us in shambles there. Yeah, I agree with you, Poonamji.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfectly put. Next one. Poonamji again. The West is trying to bedazzle, oh my God, it's a long question, its own dystopia by publicizing that Trump was bad and Biden and company will bring Ethiopia and USA and Hindus in their own homes of 10,000 years are the reason for all else in the world. They need to be told every time they open their mouth what they have done and how they came into existence. We and millions of natives worldwide have paid for it with our lands, natural wealth and resources, blood and sweat, and our culture, identity, along with our lands. Okay, that's along with our lives. Well, I think we have to just agree with it. That's all.
Yes, absolutely.
That's very well put. That's yes. Very well put, actually.
The thoughts were very well put, and that's what I mean to say. Poonamji, this is where it's called narrative building. You are creating a narrative. Now make it more powerful and take it forward.
Yes, maybe you can start writing a few articles here and there. Right. That will be even better. Brijesh K. Should India significantly focus on consolidating India-centric narrative at home first, rather than concentrating on global perception? Well, in this globalized world, I think it works together.
It works together, almost together, because everything is everywhere. So, the reason why we are talking today is because of technology has enabled, what I use the phrase, the tectonic shift in technology has brought possibilities that did not exist before. We need to take advantage of that, just as we are doing right now.
Exactly. 10,000 kilometers away and chatting together in front of you. Okay. Avinash Kumar, I have extracted 100 names of greatest evils of the world from several videos. All are beef eaters. Advanced technology one day shall detect a neurotoxic element. That day onward, beef shall be taken in the same spirit as stop smoking. Violence then shall reduce by 80%. In fact, this narrative is already there, and this has been built even by the environmentalists from the left.
Right.
That beef is the most dangerous thing for the environment globally.
That's right.
That's something that we can catch hold of and push it aggressively.
Sanjay, you will perhaps say this, confirm or deny this, but a few of my Pakistani friends have said, and I've seen a video or two, where they say that eating beef is dangerous for Islam also. They say that it should not be eaten.
Yes.
It is.
According to a hadith, I don't remember the exact reference right now, but there is a hadith, one of the two major hadiths, that is the Bukhari and the Muslim. And that says that the Prophet Muhammad himself, he said that don't eat cow meat. It is not good for health. have cow's milk. That
Right.
is what the hadith says.
Right.
But then what they've done is that they say that the political Islam takes precedence. And in that, they have developed this kind of a theology that says that anything that hurts and humiliates the kafir is halal. That is, it is good and permissible. And anything that comforts or makes the kafir happy is actually haram. This is said by none else than it's there in the Fatawa Razviya of Ahmad Raza Barelvi, who is the founder of the Barelvi sect, which is actually a federation of all the Sufis. This is there. And this is cited, this is quoted by Arun Shori in his book.
Right.
So the hadith is correct, but the counter is also there. Next, Shailesh Trivedi, I respect you from my heart. Sanjay Dixit sir, I follow you and want to be your shishya. Thank you. धन्यवाद प्रणाम आपको कि आप इंटेलेक्चुअल्स इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर लाते हैं. धन्यवाद शैलेश जी, बहुत बहुत आपको धन्यवाद. Poonam Abhi, I have to thank Sanjay ji and others like you for my words to be noticed by even my own family. In fact, even for me to realize I'm that good.
Chaliye, I think this is the greatest achievement of Jaipur Dialogues today, that you realized your potential. That's marvelous.
No, our families realize their potential. That's more important. Vishal Vengurekar, we are still being ruled by MNCs. They are using our resources and extracting profits and turning our people into machines that just work, work, work.
Look, business will always be there. Things will be required. Somebody will have to do it. The question is, how are you allowing it to happen? That's the important part. And I go back to my favorite line, that you don't have to become serving in indentured servitude. That's where it is important to be free. To be able to do what you are good at is important. Ruled by MNCs, I wouldn't say. Manipulated, perhaps. And that's what is important to remember, that resource utilization will always be there. People are going into space. God has given the whole universe amount of resources that now you have satellites that can do incredible things. So there is an element of comfort that drives the life. And, that's what is important. But people are, whether you become a machine or the flower is your choice. I don't believe in indentured servitude. So I have extracted myself from that scenario after having worked in an MNC for a long while. But वो कहते हैं कि वो सीखता है कभी. When you learn and when you know, then do something about it. That's important.
Next. Viral Patel, totally agree, Mr. Jha. Even in Britain, Goras labeled Indians as Pakis. It took years and lots of effort to make them understand the difference. We are the good ones. Was a good one.
Thank you.
That's a good one. Priyank Goel, I also explained this beef topic to Britishers by saying that if they don't eat dog, or he's member of a family, same as cow for us. He understood. Okay.
That's right. And there is other part to it also. Like I told the Americans, the reason why you don't eat horse meat is primarily because there will be no cavalry left. So just as you have your own compulsion for not doing something, leave our requirement and our compulsions to us. You have no right to sermonize us. And that's something which my favorite word is that India must reject being sermonized by others the way we should be. No, don't use the word should. This is the way we are. And how do we become better? These are the two things that have to go together. Just because I am the way I am, hum aise hi hain, wo argument nahi chalega. We can be better. There is no right answer, but there is always a better option. There is always a better answer. So keep that as in your mind. There is no right answer. Because any right answer today is wrong tomorrow, but there is always a better choice, better option, and a better answer to do things.
Okay, next one. Rahul Kulkarni. I think India's narrative is strong when farmers of India are economically strong. So don't you think we need to first focus on making farmers strong? That's what the farm laws are for.
Or exactly. Thank you.
That's what it is. Next. Rahul Ganka, Sanjay ji, Namaskar. Suggestion, it would be very nice if you can always begin or end your episode with one glorious trivia about India. Dhanyavad. Okay, that's a suggestion. I have to think about it. I don't think I'll have that much collection of trivia. So, Ashok Kumar Vikram Sood sir tweeted, Najib asked help of Abdali against Maratha and Bharat. Now traitors ask Mia Khalifa for help. At least maintain standards. Very good one. I think I need to check out that tweet. Ajay Sharma, Patram Pushpam, thank you, Ajay ji. Thank you so much. Sudhir Saxena ji, thank you. Rahul Goyanka, after living in US for many years, there's something that Hindus can learn from how Orthodox Jews do their business in US. Narrative building is one.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul.
Okay. In India narrative, we are fighting lesser than 100 people to establish the fact, but still we do not have the 10 like JD to protect us. I don't think so. I think there are plenty now. And plenty of good ones are there now. That's not the... We are not lacking in quantity. How and when do you see Bharati media go global and push our Bharati narrative in the global world?
It's a good question. And, what needs to happen is to build the narrative जो है भारती मीडिया जो है हमें अपनी कहानी को ही संभालना है पहले. That is the most important thing, Sandeep, to do here is that do we have, like I alluded to the fact, let's have more conversation on the caste issue in India. And like Sanjay ji had mentioned in one of the programs, that the moment we have great economic development, the caste thing will go away. Obviously, it has to go away. Because I always talk about the fact that हमारी कहानी जो है ना, I don't need to tell the world. American कहानी जो है हमने पढ़ी है because America has become what it has become. So likewise, if our story becomes worth telling, people will read it automatically. So we need to address our problems first and address it with a will to resolve it, not just discussion. That's important.
Right. Sandeep Singh, okay, that's done. Raghav Mahajan says education of young children is the most efficient if government can modify NCERT books under NEP. What can we do to educate school-going children? Well, that's on the anvil, and that's being done. We hope that it gets done. Of course, we have to remain vigilant and keep putting pressure. That's always there. Shankar Narayan Swami, Namaskaram. Please invite Vinod from String Reveals for a discussion on Soros money trail in farmers' protest. A detailed discussion is Ati Avashyak. Okay.
He does a good job. He does a very good job. I have seen some of his episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Very gutsy guy.
I noted this. Teach Ramayana from class 1 to 5, Bhagavad Gita class 6 to 10, Bhagavatam 11 to graduation. Beautiful Sanatan narrative is set for life. Great idea, actually.
Great idea. Very good suggestion, Nitesh.
And I did a lot of Ramayana and Gita 1 to 5. So you can see the effect even today. Isha Gupta, so Indians coming to US from India don't want to know or hear about India. How can we build a narrative where our own people don't want to take a stand for India?
That's a very very valid observation, Isha Gupta ji. What I want to say is that I've seen it happen. Even during the farmer agitation, the dialogue on some of the WhatsApp groups were pathetic, to say the least. People were saying, "Wo India ka mamla hai, why are we fighting here?" And I had to tell that man that you do millions of dollars worth of business with India. Your wealth here is directly related to the business that you do in India. How can you say you are not related to that? So you are right. Indians are not politically motivated, as many other communities are. We have to get politically aware. We have to get politically aware. We have to have that. Because every other immigrant community that is here, they are politically remarkably active in making demands on the society. We don't. And to that end, now that momentum is picking up very strongly, considering that a lot of Indians are now turning towards Republican Party because they don't like what they say in Democratic Party.
Good. Wish they had learned it earlier. Why BJP is not getting seats in TN and Tamil Nadu and Odisha? Sorry, sir. This is not the topic today, so I'll pass it over. Poonama B, I said that in the 1990s to the scared Americans who mocked me for not eating beef, that the mad cow disease was the revenge of the cows. That's another good one. Okay. A lot of Western leftists are vegan, vegetarian. India should do a lot of exchange programs via our consulates. These consulates are sleeping.
Your opinion, I will not argue with that, Rinaji, but these consulates need to get more active. They have been trained and inducted into the mindset of non-aligned movement, and to some extent, I think under Jaishankarji, there is a lot of aggression coming. And I had told a couple of other consulates in the past, some of the people that I knew, that you have to become wartime diplomats. You are no longer the peacetime diplomats. You have to learn the techniques of messaging and interacting with the people around. Vegan and vegetarian is an awareness that has come in the world. And so that is, vegan is very easy to be vegan in America because you get food which is remarkably tasty, perhaps even more tasty than non-vegetarian food. So beyond burger, those meatless burgers and sausages and all that you get is absolutely fantastic. Even vegetarians say that, that's good stuff. So what I'm trying to say to you is that we must get more involved. Consulates ko chhod dijiye. This is not for consulates. This is for people-to-people contact. You organize exchange of 35, 40 people, vegan, vegetarian, to visit India, and Indians to come here to see what food this is made here. That can be done in India. You can have a business venture going right there.
Okay, next. Avinash Kumar, one exception was Adolf Hitler, but he was vegetarian because he had irritative bowel syndrome, and doctor had advised not to eat meat. So what are you suggesting?
If you bring Adolf Hitler in any conversation, people will go against it. So don't bring him in at all.
Ekalav is saying, Pranam, sir. The way India has handled China at the border, the pandemic handling, abrogation of Article 317, deciding the Ram Mandir issue so unabashedly, all this shows that we are a new India that set the narrative.
You're absolutely right. And that's what is bothering the left, the Panchmakars, as we call it here, is that Modi is the biggest. Hate Modi syndrome is big because so long as Modi ji is there, they fear they have no chance. And the way Modi ji addressed the parliament, both houses, that was exemplar leadership and narrative building. That was awesome. Totally great.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Next. Arjun Sharma, Jai Hind sir, can we change the equation of anti-India in our favor by using white guilt as blacks have done quite beautifully? Or we keep proud and don't use the biggest fault line of the West as now Dems are in power?
I would say that when you see something wrong, say it. It doesn't matter whether Dem or Republican, whoever it is. And, we don't need to always think what others are doing. हमें क्या करना है, ये हमें सोचना है. जो हमारे लिए is very more relevant than anything else. So while we can pick on the example, like I said, learn from others, but let's adapt it to our own practice. That is important to do.
Yeah, okay. Patram Pushpam, Nilimaji, thank you. Next, Siddhant, finally, an Indian PM unapologetically supported private sector in parliament. Can our narrative building start without shunning anti-capitalism mindset? Can Modi bring the change?
I think Mr. Modi is bringing the change, and I'm very happy. I was definitely very happy to hear that he didn't vilify private sector in the thing. But remember one thing, it's very important to remember. India
he vilified bureaucracy, though.
Yes, he vilified bureaucracy, though. But important thing is that India was perhaps the original example of public-private participation. Original example. We had both sectors running. It was not 90% like America in private sector, not 100% in Russia and China as the socialist model. But we had a model. What got bad was when people got in cahoots and institutions like MRTP Act, the License Raj, brought the corruption to such an extent that gave businessmen "Chor hai" a popular slogan, and that must go. Everybody is part of the process.
Right. Next. Dilip Kumar. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your great contribution. Really grateful. Thanks for all your wonderful analysis on building nation. You should also start a book club for suggested reading. I think that's a good suggestion.
Very good suggestion. And I would give you, Dilip, a suggestion here. Pick up the book, The Startup Nation. I want every Indian young man to read that book, The Startup Nation. It's the story of Israel. So look at how that country learned from its own experience. And that's something, not that I read Startup Nation and I'm telling you to do that. I have always been a believer that India must find its own roots and its own style. We are different than others. Israel did it. A small country surrounded by enemies. They found the necessity to be self-sufficient by developing science and technology to help them innovate. So think about it like this. I have met many Israeli captains of industry and many people. They have one basic problem. Every youth is part of the armed forces. They face life and death decision making in the training and in the war. When they come back in the civil life, they have fear of nothing. Think about it from that point of view. They innovate, and innovate. So I suggest everybody look up that book. It's an old book now, but The Startup Nation is a great place to start up creating the national narrative of India. Thank you, Dilip.
And may I add another here? I think Being Different by Rajiv Malhotra.
Right.
That actually is a narrative setting book, and
Right.
that should be read by everybody.
Yes, I have read that, and the first time he wrote is a great book. Being Different, Breaking India. He created
Breaking India is on a different
That's right. Yes,
but Being Different is a narrative setting thing.
Correct.
It actually gives you that pride of not just being different. What is the meaning of our plurality, diversity, and all that? It takes you deep down into it, and especially for youngsters, I think it's priceless. Next, Reena Sukhdev. I don't see Canadian PM thanking India for vaccines.
He must be very ashamed of himself, perhaps.
He should thank Jagmeet, or I think we can have an exchange.
He
Send
must have
Jagmeet.
gone to some Bhangra in Gurdwara, perhaps.
No, we can have Jagmeet extradited here and send them all the vaccines. We can even give our share of vaccines to them
Right.
if they can spare Jagmeet for us. Next, what will narrative do when demographics change? Narratives can change demographics as well.
Right.
But again, you should learn from the Israeli experience. So again, that book that is being suggested by Vibhuti Jha. They changed the geography of that area through their narrative.
That's right.
Jai Kishan Lakhani. I lived in US more than 14 years, moved back for good. My observation was that a lot of migrant Indians try to disassociate themselves with Indians to demonstrate their loyalty to whites. Is it the colonization effect or left narrative? It is the Zimmi effect.
Yeah, it is.
They're the classical Zimmis.
Right.
I hope you understand what we mean by Zimmis.
Right.
The same as Stockholm syndrome, you can call it. You're absolutely right there. You're right on the money. PhD party, I'm an Oracle DBA by profession. My batchmates gave me nickname Atalji, the way I spoke and delivered content. Wow. I would like to contribute to JD for podcast series as freelance for the cause.
Ah,
PSG, please share your contact with us. We will get in touch with you. Next. Shabarinath. What I fear is India shouldn't get into the cycles of capitalism and socialism. Unregulated capitalism there leads again rise of left as in the US. And in broader sense, there needs to be a third way. And ancient scriptures may have the third way. Blaming Babus for everything is also not good. Well, I think you can blame Babus like me for a lot. But that's just about everything. The whole Indian psychology should change. India is the only country which has very less bureaucracy per capita. Yes, it may have less bureaucracy per capita, but its tentacles per capita are probably the highest in the world.
that's right. You have echoed my thought that when I said that let's not do isms of capitalism and socialism, let's do Bharatiya. That's what I'm trying to say, that every time I have said this, that we have to develop our own Bharatiya part.
I would also request the viewers not to put such long questions. I think we'll have to filter them otherwise. It takes too much of time reading such long questions. No, here is other one.
Right, bang on.
Or face or research, Neeraj Shah is still Vedas Mahabharata because King Var. I think we just agree with you.
Right.
The statement, we take it as a statement and we agree with you. That's the safest. All longer statements we'll just agree or disagree. In my opinion, if Modi fails, India will fail for a long time. Yes, that's
it will hurt. It will hurt. If he fails, it will hurt. Definitely. Yeah.
But by all indication, it doesn't look like. Next. Aren't we much dependent on an individual, that is Modi ji, for correct narrative building? No, we never said that.
No.
We never said that way. In fact, we are exhorting all of you,
yes,
all of us, everybody.
I've told you about Modi Plus. We have to become Modi Plus. The plus
exactly. Is us. No, what we said actually was that we cannot depend on the government because government has its limitations. Next. So when will you have Rajiv Malhotra ji on his new book on AI? Sir, I haven't read it. So let me first read it. I've got too much of backlog on my plate. He also tells how the big techs are using our data to set narrative. I have read that book, and let me see when I can do that. Next. When will you use Ku? I'm already using. My handle is very simple, Sanjay Dixit. You can go there. I even tweeted about it.
You didn't coo about it, right?
I cooed about it also. In fact, I've even written ban Twitter on Ku.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so that's the last question. And so we bring to the end of this episode. Thank you very much. Okay, one more question is coming. Just been indicated. One last question, last minute question. So here it is. Ronald Reagan. Oh my God. From heaven or hell? How do you tell a communist? Well, it's someone who reads Marx and Lenin. And how do you tell an anti communist? It's someone who understands Marx and Lenin.
Good
By
call.
the way, Marx and Lenin were current in his times, but now Marx and Lenin are passé.
Right.
Now it's all, that's Saul Alinsky, Noam Chomsky, Derrida, what's his name? Gramsci, Frankfurt School. These are the things that you must learn about now. Forget, Marx and Lenin are passé. They're outdated. Okay. One more question, I'm told. Arjun Sharma, if it's okay, my last question is Jai Hind, sir, as Indians were taken as slaves to Africa, then just a darker shade of African slaves given them right to become oppressed till now. Isn't it racism against Indians who have worked the hardest to achieve any milestone in West and still we are villains in their eyes? Yes, I guess so. We just have to agree with you on this. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so that's it. We finally come to the end of this and we say, okay. And they're not letting us end the program. So does Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb come from Ganga Yamuna river or from the fact that Ganga river is called Jamuna in Bangladesh? Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb comes from the what is called Ashraf mindset, and we have a full program on this. आप देख लीजिए ना गंगा जमुना तहजीब का हमारा प्रोग्राम
That's right.
पुष्पेंद्र जी के साथ वो भी of all the people.
Oh, right.
Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb. So thank you all viewers. Before next question comes up, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you.
Oh, there's one more. The Modi hatred and Delhi youth is appalling. How to make it idea of India fashionable. You just have to talk about your great achievements, talk to them and show them the videos.
That's right.
You can